Good morning, everyone. I see we already have the first attendees registering for our webinar this morning on co-working in Vietnam with the title Where Opportunity Meets Growth. First of all, thank you to the panelists for joining this call with us this morning. Thank you to the attendees as well. We have almost 100 registrations for our webinar this morning, and I'm really looking forward to find out more about co-working in Vietnam for our panelists and to share more information about this really interesting market vertical. Let's start first with a quick introduction. We've been waiting as well for the attendees to join. My name is Vlad Savin. I'm head of business development for the client Vietnam. And together with Matthew Lowry and the three panelists, we created this webinar focusing on the co-working space market in Vietnam and the flexible workspace as well. Let's move forward with a few details about our client and who we are. We're a corporate service provider based in Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, and Da Nang, our offices in Vietnam. But we have offices across 10 jurisdictions in Asia, US, and Netherlands as well. We focus on market entry services, company establishment, company setup structures, licensing, ongoing compliance, looking at accounting, tax, and services regarding payroll for investors in Vietnam, and as well advisory. So we have global standards and global offices, but for the Vietnam office, we work mostly with investors looking into entering Vietnam and supporting them with their compliance in the country. And that's one of the reasons why we're closely aligned with the co-working space industry, because we work with them very closely, supporting investors looking for offices, so support in their market entry. A few technical details. I'm sure really everyone is aware how about the Zoom interaction. Quick details here. You have the Q&A button. Use that anytime you want when you have a question for any of the panelists. We will get to the Q&A session in due course. If you want to have a microphone and interact directly with the panelists, you can raise your hand. I will unmute you as usual, and you can ask your question. Moving forward, just a couple of insights on what you will learn in today's session. Some of the key things, and obviously the questions will revolve around the broad range of topics regarding co-working in Vietnam. However, these things will certainly be addressed by Matthew and the panelists. How will the co-working industry enable value creation? What is the future of co-working in Vietnam, especially looking towards 2022 and beyond? And how will the flexible workspace market develop? What are the latest trends, and how should businesses adapt to meet these trends? How you can leverage technology and flexibility to design your dream workspace, and what you need to consider for planning your strategy end of this year and moving towards next year. The value add for this webinar represents as well our market study that we put together at the beginning of this year at a client together with Cushman & Wakefield. It's a 40-page market insight report on the co-working and flexible workspace industry in Vietnam. This will be sent across to your email together with details from the three panelists, June Lex, the Hive, and Circle, and obviously the recording as well upon request will be sent. Let's see how are the registrations going and the logins. Let's give a couple of more minutes, and then I will let Matthew quick introductions with our distinguished panelists here. Again, for those who logged in a bit later, good morning. We're ready to start our Coworking in Vietnam webinar. Our panelists are ready for the discussion. If you have any questions, if you want to interact with the panelists, just use the Q&A function or raise your hand. This will be an interactive discussion. Slides, mostly about experiences and ideas shared by the three representatives of three most important co-working spaces. I see we have already over 50 participants. I think we're slowly ready to begin. So I'd like to then introduce Matthew, Managing Partner of Client Vietnam. He will be your moderator this morning, and I will allow him to share a few details about him and then introduce the speakers. Matthew, over to you.
Thank you very much, Vlad, and great to be here with everyone this morning. Just as I start, this is, as Vlad said, interactive. Pop your questions. We may leave some of them to more of a Q&A. We may just go straight into those questions as you raise them, but let's make this interactive. This is not a presentation. This is a discussion. This is to learn, and so your insights and your questions are very important for us as well. So today we have representatives from three of the better, more well-known, larger flexible working space providers. We have Dreamplex, The Hive and Serco, and we have people with three different backgrounds and three different viewpoints, and they're all subtly different. So I'm really interested to dig into, find out about those differences and what they see the future, where this is going, how the industry is evolving and how they see it personally, but also for their businesses they represent. So I'm going to start with Dan. Dan van Rossum is you're the Chief Experience Officer there. Is that title changed recently at Dreamplex? And Dan, just as a quick background there, he's come from a marketing background and has really taken his role there as something trying to look at the experience, the user experience, that visual interactive side of things. So Dan, quick introduction for yourself and a bit about your background and what your role is at Dreamplex.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Matthew and Vlad, for both organizing this and inviting us. We're very honored and humbled to be a part of it, and very excited to talk about co-working and flexible office in Vietnam. So as Matt just introduced, I'm Dan. I'm the CEO of Dreamplex. I originally joined as a consultant for 3 months to advise Dreamplex on how they could evolve into this future of work. That became then a fixed position, and then last month I took over the company from Jonah, our previous CEO, who is currently in the US watching, I think. So hello, Jonah, good evening. And yes, so we have really been focused over the last year to kind of take a step back and see at what is the role of flexible offices in Vietnam. How can we create something that's truly of value? And in that, like you said, Matt, we really go back to that key question, the user experience question. At the end of the day, who is going to be using that office? It's really the employee of the company that we partner with. And how can we create something from every single aspect that adds up to a workplace experience that is a great experience for them? We call that a better day at work. And that's really what we deliver to the companies that we partner with.
Fantastic. So we'll explore shortly a bit more about that, but that's a great introduction. I'm going to go across to Tanya Tung, who is the country manager at The Hive in Vietnam. Tanya, you've come from an operations background. You've been with Hive for a couple of years now, and Hive is interesting where it started regionally across Asia, and every location's a bit different. And in Vietnam, you've sort of got a similar approach. So just a quick introduction about yourself and your role at The Hive in Vietnam.
So hi everyone, my name is Tanya. I am a country manager of The Hive Saigon. So we have here 3 locations, and as Matthew mentioned, all of them are very different. So we have a pool here, the villa, And then we have one location in Taoyuan, which has a very good rooftop. And then one in D1 is more like a service office. So all locations are a little bit different from each other, but what we do here is to bring the community and then also engage our members to connect them with each other and just make everyone feel like it's when they come to the Hive, everyone will feel that it's their second home from home. So this is the quotation from our CEO, Constant Tedder. So that's our motto. So what we want to bring and what we want to achieve as a company. Yeah, that's it.
And last but not least, we've got Lin Huang. So Lin is an entrepreneur and has started Circo to provide a defined sort of space and a business and an experience to starting at the entrepreneurial side of things, but moving much more into an experience point of view. So Lin, introduce yourself and a bit about what you're trying to achieve with Circo and what you've created as part of this entrepreneurial background, trying to see a need and trying to fill something you said was sort of missing in the market.
We can't hear you.
Lin, you're on mute. Here you are. Go.
You guys can hear me well, right?
Yes.
Sorry, I just muted myself. Anyway, my name is Lin. I'm co-founder and CEO of Circle. So I'm one of the 3 co-founders. We started Circle 5 years ago. We are celebrating 5th year anniversary in next 3 days. So across all the co-working operators in Vietnam, Circle is among the youngest and the latest co-working operator operating by chain. So we started Circle with a purpose of becoming a business platform that supports startups and SME. So that was our very initial story when we first started 5 years ago. But recently, in the last 2 or 3 years, we started to shift ourselves to support the bigger enterprise. So right now, the size of the tenant is increasing. So not just provide an office space, but providing a flexibility solution for them to grow teams, and also provided other supported service for them in order to grow the best in the country. So we're also working with a lot of regional startups in helping them expanding to the countries.
Thank you very much. So that's sort of the introduction. We've sort of got a feel, but let's dig a bit more. I'm going to start the next sort of round of questions from a looking backwards a little bit, because I think that's going to shape the future and start shaping some of this discussion, is where the pandemic has put us and what each of the different operators have done and how they've changed their approach and the opportunities coming out of that. So let's look back a little bit. I'll ask Dan, can you talk about what you have done over the last 2 or 3 months, 4 months in response to, and how you've coped with the pandemic and how that's changed your view a little bit about where you sit in the market and what you will need to do going forward? So just sort of focus on the history a bit more, and we'll start looking at the future in separate discussions. But let's start that sort of view if you can, Dan.
Okay, so we're gonna look back first before we can look forward, right?
Look forward, because that sets the position to why we're looking forward, because things have changed from what we were, as Lin said, what we were in the past. Things are constantly changing, and I think this has changed things quite a bit with the sort of this lockdown and how businesses think about and how you've coped and how they've coped during the shutdown.
Sure, yeah. So it's a really interesting question, because I think that we kind of keep coming back to this theme of the lockdown and COVID generally has both been a blessing and a curse, I think, for our entire industry. This whole VUCA world is definitely making companies think differently about workplace and also about what it takes to run a great workplace. So looking back, in the last couple of months has been just incredibly tough. I mean, I think I can say that very openly. It's been very difficult to be an office provider during the time where people are working from home. Again, we'll get to what that then turned into and why it's a great opportunity. but the last couple of months were very difficult. I mean, I think first of all, for us as an organization, we have over 40 people across workplace strategy, design, construction, employee experience, IT, like all of those teams had to all of a sudden work from home. That was already, as an organization, really difficult. And then obviously, additionally, we had to do a lot with the physical locations. We have 5 locations in Saigon and Hanoi, and 3 huge new sites under development. So we're going to grow to about 20,000 square meters in the next few months. So all of that went on hold. All of our business plans went on hold. Everything that we were looking forward to for this year has all been delayed by at least 6 months. So the last couple of months has been very, very, very challenging. Yeah, I think that day when finally the word came out, I think I read it on the Acclaim LinkedIn page first, by the way, always like great reporting, that the lockdown was ending. That was really, I think, for everyone, like a really, really welcome news, because the last couple of months have been very difficult generally.
And okay, Tanya, how did you deal with that? What things did you have to change during the lockdown, and how has it impacted your business and the thinking about your customers and members?
Sorry.
Did you hear that? So I'll repeat that. So Tanya, during the lockdown, how did what did you do to deal with it, and to deal with the sort of during that period, and how have you dealt with it, changed, and dealt with your members, and looked and survived that sort of the lockdown experience? What were the challenges you experienced and had to solve?
Not having great internet was definitely one of the downsides of the lockdown.
Apologies.
Are you hearing that, Tanya?
I'm sorry for disconnecting. Yeah, so is it my turn to answer the questions? Yes. Okay. So during the 2-3 months, it was, as Dan mentioned, struggle everywhere, like with everything. So we were working from home, but also we need to kind of fill the office as well. So what we tried to do here during the lockdown is we adapted to what is going on. So we focused on, okay, during the lockdown, what our members are most concerned of. Of course, it's money. So we offered the support plan. So we talked to all our members, see, okay, how can the Hive support you during this hard time? And then we also talk to them and see what is going on with you currently, what are you lacking? So a lot of them asked that, well, I miss working at the office, I miss networking. So that's why we also try to adapt to this situation, and also created something like virtual Hive space where you can go online and network. And our most attended event had 300 plus attendees. So a lot of our members are actually appreciative of what we do here, because we engaged them during the lockdown while they were stuck at home and no one else to talk to except for online meetings. Yeah.
That's impressive. 300 at an event is impressive. So well done. And Lin, you know, you have a lot of the sort of the startups and a lot of businesses that are matured from that startup and that were sort of had this fixed office. I need to be in the office. How did you adapt, and what did Serco do, and how did you solve and deal with those issues during the lockdown period?
I think what happened in the last 2 years with the pandemic happened like every 100 years, and it's also a very challenging period. So our approach to our customers is to be like very frank and straightforward, looking directly to their problems. For example, regarding the rent-free and rent reduction support to them. And we are also like offering support such as like delaying the payments So make sure that when the lockdown just lifted and tenants like they started to have like revenue coming back, so they can be delayed in paying us like later without paying any interest charge or something like that. At the same time, we are also having a very open discussion with our third-party partners in order like to discuss any like potential support from them. And luckily that we have a very good partners and tenants. So so far, I think like we have managed the expectations of everyone in order like to help like everyone overcome this pandemic.
Great. So, and that's a good foundation. So let's start talking about where the sector's going, why businesses are moving to this flexible office, and what does that mean? Because it means different things. There's different reasons. We have a discussion offline before we started this. We had a bit of debate about you can look at things in many different ways. So Dan, and I'm going to do different questions to different panelists from this point forward. I'm happy with audience questions too. Where's this evolution going? What's it mean sort of shorter term, medium term that you see for your business? What is that change from that mindset with businesses as they see this flexible office options that you can provide?
Yeah, so now we've left sort of this difficult past behind us, and obviously I hope we don't jinx it with this conversation and that it's going to happen again, but we hope that this was
And just for the benefit of everyone, Dan did say it's, looking beyond 6 months is really difficult right at the moment. It's a challenge. So I'll preface that you've already told me that, looking beyond, so I'm not going to hold you and the audience won't hold you, but we're just curious for thoughts.
Yeah. No, I think, Matt, this is, this is where we're spending all of our time and energy, is to think about what we previously called the future of work, which we probably can call the now of work, which is when organizations have realized that their employees are just as productive working from home as they are in the office. Like, why do you still need an office? So, before the pandemic, I talked a lot about the death of co-working. Like, I believe that overall co-working is kind of coming to its end, but I think at this point we can also say it's kind of the death of the traditional office. And I think what's really going to happen is that it's going to meet somewhere in between, where companies still want everything they would get from a traditional office, which is it's private, it's professional, it looks like you own your own space. It's really your company culture coming to life. It's designed for your team's needs. But you don't want to be stuck in a kind of traditional office building that's very sterile, very kind of like unengaging. And so you want to kind of take advantage of what co-working traditionally has done really well, that sense of, as Tanya mentioned, community, and what Lin mentioned about helping businesses connect, get more out of the space that they're in than just a place for people to come to work. So I see that sort of like coming together, really creating this kind of best of both worlds. And I think, again, we go back to this quote that I use a lot from Anthony Slumbers, who is a real estate strategist in the UK. And he always says that companies don't want offices, right? If a company could choose, you would just not have an office, because it's way cheaper to let people work from home than having to like rent space and buy furniture and construct it. But what they do want is an engaged workforce. And I would probably argue not only engaged, but also productive and collaborative and innovative, right? All the things that companies want their people for. And so that's really what we then go into. We look at, okay, if the company, if really what they want is this really great team that is going to create great outputs for them, then what is the role of the workplace within that? Very much as a combination of maybe one central office, maybe with additional spaces near where people live, because it takes a lot to travel around Saigon, and also including remote work or work from home, kind of this like work from anywhere kind of strategy. And so I really think that the last couple of months, with companies seeing that employees can totally be productive from home, but that they still want to come back to the office at least part-time, that when you add those things up, you can really think a little bit more about offices instead of just one office, a little bit more like a platform. Like at different days, at different times, there are different needs for different employees. And how can you create an entire platform that then enables that? And that's really what we're focused on. And that's what we do. For example, we run all of Tiki's operations in Hanoi. where they have both the space, they have one, they're actually expanding right now, but they have like one entire floor for themselves. No one knows that we are running it. We're just using our experience, our abilities that we've gained over the last 6 years running all these engaging workplaces, but then also have access to shared facilities. They can run a huge event if they want. And if they need something in Saigon, they can do it too. We've built a technology platform behind it. So it's really just taking a step away from kind of an office as a real estate thing and really thinking more of it as a platform and really a user-centric platform. So that's really, I think, where everything is heading now.
And that sort of ties in quite well to our next question to Tanya, is this, one of the Hive's focus has been this community. And in each location, as you say, it's different, but there's a community around there. And there's big and small businesses, and there's this culture. How are you going to, how is that into the future, that culture? Is it still, do you think it's the communities will drive this and be an important part, the facilities, or is it going to be more about my own space? And is it about having access to what I need as a business, or the community will still drive it, do you think?
Is a question for Dan?
Yeah, for you, Daniel.
For me, for Tanya. Okay. So I do agree with what Dan said. Definitely, totally agree that nowadays everyone wants to rotate to see experience if they want to do the office or they want to experience the co-working, and that's fine. I think it's important right now after the pandemic. Every organization, every company is now looking what is their culture. So they're focusing on what do they want for their employees. So do they want their employees to be stuck in the office and work because that's the most productive? Or do they want to be more flexible and actually ask their employees, okay, do you need to only work to come to the office 3 times a week? Or do you need a space to work near your home? So what do you need? Those are the good questions that leaders or CEOs, CFOs, or co-founders ask their employees to actually build the culture that your company needs. And the co-working comes in place. So co-working can offer you the office, co-working can also offer you the flexible desk, so whatever your organization needs. So this is why, before we started this event, we had a little bit of argument from Matthew and Ben, and I was just sitting back and listening, both kind of arguing, and I agree to both. So I agree to co-working. It's gonna evolve. There is a high demand, but also for traditional leasing. So everything depends on what the company needs. So if the company chooses the traditional leasing, go ahead, choose it. You have your own space, you have your own building, but you will need to have the person who manages it. You will need to have, for example, HR to engage your team with all the events or create that engaging community. But with the co-working, you can go to co-working. They will fix everything that you have. For example, the AC broke. You don't know who to call. You just tell us, we fix it. In a traditional office, you need to ask your staff, okay, find someone to fix it now. And then, but the co-working is not like that. So you tell us, we do everything for you. For example, in a traditional office, you will need to have an HR person. I mean, HR is very important in any organization, but it takes a lot of time to build the community and then create the events or team buildings and everything. So when you go to co-working, just because we have so many events, you just tell your team, okay, they have a happy hour this Friday, let's join. Or this Thursday night, they have networking event, let's join. And that way you need to spend less time to do all that and focus your time, money, capital on your product and actual growth of your own organization. So yeah.
And I think that's important, Tanya, is that you're coming back to that community. You're providing a bigger community and a bigger resource that would otherwise be available in a particular way. And that's why each location and each provider is subtly different, because there's a different focus and a different feel, and finding the right one that fits. But that's exactly right. Which leads me then to Lin. With your focus, which was originally these entrepreneurs, these startups, these SMEs, but you're moving into the larger space, providing a more traditional replacement for those larger businesses. But a lot of that growth is for those businesses that were small and have grown larger and are still want the flexibility. How have you adapted, and how do you see that adaptation changing into the future to retain those businesses as they get bigger, as they have their own HR teams, as they grow? So Lin, where do you see Serco and your model for that?
So we're looking at the growing needs of the tenants. So a couple of years ago, when we first shifted our customer segment to the bigger ones, we're looking at how they are solving their office and admin issues. Our team, we had like research on what are the needs of this kind of tenants. So and we realized that the bigger tenants, they are requiring a very high standard of office space and facilities. So for example, so 2 years ago, we served one of the multinational corporations. So where they first started with 100 members in our office, and they really care on how we can provide a safe office for them in terms of the fire protections, access, elevators, and parkings. So whether the office space can comply with the high standard of the multinational corporations. And at that time, we realized that with those like kind of customers, they don't really care much on cost. Of course, the cost is still like one of their priorities when selecting the office space, but that is not the top line issue. However, other issues that are coming from their side, such as office safety, accessibility to the office, and other like building system. So I think that is one of the key difference between bigger type of tenants and startups and SMEs companies, where startups and SMEs they care more on the cost itself and the flexibility to the flexibility to scale up, scale down the team.
If I can build on that, Matt, if you don't mind.
Please, absolutely.
Right. Because I think like if we put Tanya and Lin's answers together, I think we get exactly to what we were just talking about, right? Which is that this is really in the core. It doesn't sound sexy or interesting, but at the core, this is an outsourcing industry, right? What we basically do is take all of the lessons that we've learned the hard way over years and years and years of running offices and breaking our head over how do you turn an office, which is typically just a place you go to do work, how do you turn it into something that people love to come to? So that's where hospitality comes in. That's where F&B comes in. That's where activities and events come in. And to your point, even if a company grows, again, I don't think we would typically target anyone over 200 employees, but if a company grows and have their own HR team, that still doesn't make them an expert into that level of engagement, right? And so, JLL released this famous report maybe 2 or 3 years ago where they said that by 2030, 30% of all real estate, I saw Chris's question just now, 30% of all real estate will be consumed flexibly. But we also have to acknowledge, to the previous points, that that's a spectrum, right? That's a spectrum all the way from maybe something like traditional offices with flexible leases on one side and turnkey workspaces on one side, all the way down to fully workspace on demand and co-working or work from home on the other side. And to Tanya's point, it really depends on the kind of company and the size of the company, what they need. And so I think what we're getting into is much more again, for one singular company, if they want to deliver employee experience and workplace experience at the level that we would do it, they would have to hire this huge team that we are paying for centrally. They would have to hire all of that internally. And that is exactly what a Google does. That is exactly what an Adobe does. That is exactly what a V&G does. They have these huge teams that run these really engaging campuses where it's just so fun to come to work. And there's all these initiatives and there's technology plays and all these things. But how does that work for a company of 100 employees, 150 employees, kind of like where we really target? It's just impossible for them to hire that and also to then offer that kind of space, right? One of our new locations, the campus in District 4, right across the bridge from Bitexco, that we're developing together with Refico, who previously developed projects like City Garden and Center Points and President's Place. That's going to be like a 7,500 square meter, huge campus, only 2 floors, fully walkable, around 1,000 square meter garden. No 100-person company can offer that to their employees. And what employees want, and again, we go back to, we're building offices for employees, because if these employees feel excited to come to work, then they'll do great work for you, right? That solves the problem of the business. And what they want is openness and comfort and having space around them and being able to work both in a lounge and in a cafe and have a great restaurant on site and then go to a meeting room and have phone booths and have focus corners. And you simply cannot pack all of that into a small workspace. So I think that's, again, really, we're in the outsourcing business, right? And I do think that based on our experience, based on our data from all the people on the call today, that is something we can provide. And as Lin said, then it's typically not about price anymore, because price will always be, of course, you cannot price it at $1,000 per person, at least not in Vietnam.
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, it's a
thing, right?
What's that?
And to compare, working from home costs nothing.
Right, exactly. That's what I said. So then if you're going to run an office, it has to create value. It has to create an output. It has to create a return on investment, right? And that's where we come in. That's exactly what all three of us would do, depending on what that customer needs. And I think that's really the conversation we're having now. And just over, I'm sure for the others too, just over the last week, the amount of people, the amount of companies, and again, it's heads of HR, CEOs, CFOs that have picked up the phone and have called and said, we're dealing with this huge puzzle of people wanting to work more from home, but we're stuck with this traditional office. What do we do? And that's obviously where we all can come in and advise and say, well, here's how you do it.
Well, here's a question to all three of you leading from that. We saw, was it last week, PwC in the USA, 40,000 staff, maybe 46,000 staff have said that no one is required to work in the office anymore. They've got a complete flexible arrangement now going ahead. And that's, we expect to see more of that. Where does that leave your businesses? Do we see that moving back towards a co-working? People are seeing, I've got a desk in a co-working office. Will that be people taking out, or small groups taking out, more flexible arrangements to sort of their staff scattered all over the place? How will this, we've got a paradigm shift in where people work and how they work. Will that give more opportunities for growth? Will that require your industries to keep changing? Because it seems to be that we're just constantly turning around of what an office is, where we need to be. Will this result in people working from home and not even needing your services? So where do you take advantage? How do we build that into the flexible office of the future?
Okay, I want to answer this one. So I do agree with Dan and Lin. So the co-working is not only for startups or entrepreneurs. And if we look back at last year, 2020, when the first lockdown happened here in Vietnam, it was hard, right? But it was 1 month only. And after that 1 month, we had the occupancy went up, skyrocket. 2-3 months, we are back to full. And then this is the same trend I will see here, this time, just be out of the lockdown. We already have been able to sell few of the offices. So I will see there's always a huge demand in the co-working, because the first reason companies started to look, why do we need a traditional office where the lease is 3-6 years? We need more flexibility. So that's why they reach out to the co-working. And to answer your question about how the co-working will work out in 5 years and how we change the industry, well, I think I know for sure that now all the co-workings will try to get a bigger space to tailor to Tiki or the large enterprises, because they also reach out to us. And then also, if you look at the economy in Vietnam, it's growing, and we have a lot of opportunities. We have a lot of businesses, a lot of startups, and we had members that started with 5 people, and in 5 months it's 100 people. So the expansion rate is it's super fast, and we as a co-working industry will need to adapt and keep up. So we'll need to find a larger space to be able to accommodate those companies with the expansion. Yeah, so definitely I'll see bigger spaces in the co-workings, and also more convenience. So we'll try to look for right opportunities, right locations, where we have F&B, where we have, you know, a shopping mall or anything for our members to enjoy and get the value of.
Perfect. So Lin or Dan, you can also jump in on that one. So that PwC, we're changing, we're just blowing up the whole traditional business model. Does that work for you? Does it work against you? How do you work with that, and how do you take advantage?
I can add some answer on top of that. I think like when you're working from home or working at the office, so the working environment will be like carried like by different type of tasks. For example, for myself speaking, in the last 3 months working from home, I can feel that I can be more comfortable working on like individual tasks. For example, like on my admin stuff or planning stuff. But when it comes to like more collaborative tasks, I think in office environment will make it easier to discuss with your colleagues when you can see like face-to-face interactions, read your staff emotion on the face. So I am not very convinced that working from home or work distantly will remove like in-office settings, and our team and our college also see that. So when we're working from home, the working efficiency drop dramatically, because like people cannot like get in touch with each other, or even with a Google Meet or Zoom conversation. It is sometimes like very uncomfortable for people to interact. For example, if we have like some internet issues and there's a lack of the connection, and it will be a waste of time of everybody in the meeting room. So I think and I believe that in office working will be still better for collaboration purposes. So in the next couple of months, we are adapting ourselves to providing more flexible hybrid office solution for our members that enable our members to work combinedly at office across different location and at from home. We also like done like several research on how a bigger corporation are adapting to the post-pandemic. For example, Schneider Electric, they are implementing 2-day working from home mandatory for all Schneider Electric staff across the world. However, they still operate at least 3 times going to office to solve the collaboration tasks or meetings or meeting with clients. So I think that will be a trend where people will combine at office and remotely. So I don't like really think that the working from home policy of PwC will make it like easier for them to manage staff, especially for collaboration focused works.
Yeah, we should probably also acknowledge that, Matthew, exactly how you introduced it. They're giving people the option to work from home. They're not closing their offices. They're not saying, offices are not going to work anymore. Google, Microsoft, PwC, KPMG, they're all investing in offices. They're opening up more offices. But what they're doing is that they're actually saying, yes, a lot of work can be done from home. And we know that flexibility is a perk. Like that is a true perk, that if you can choose between companies to work for, and one says you have to be in the office 5 days a week, traditional Vietnamese style, fingerprint scanner in the morning, fingerprint scanner out at night, versus a company that says, look, I trust you to do the best work that you can do wherever you want to do it. And you can work from home when you want, you can work from the office where you want. And maybe if it's a really great company, even offer the ability to work at a network of co-working spaces like Hive, Circle, or Dreamplex. Of course, the employee is going to choose for flexibility, all other things being equal. So what KPMG is doing, what PwC is doing, what all of these people in that industry are doing is to say, you're consultants, you're doing a lot of work that can be done from home because you have a lot of like regional, global calls. So maybe sometimes a day working from home makes sense, sometimes a day working in the office makes sense. But then when you come to the office needs to deliver something very different than workspace. You don't come to the office to do the same thing that you do at home, which is sit behind your computer and work. That's where you want to run into people. That's where you want to socialize. That's where you want to grow and learn together, right? Research has shown this time and time again. That is where the value of the office comes in. And then to your question about how does that impact our business? I think, again, we have to step away from that idea of co-working as a, like 500, 1,000 square meter sites where people all kind of like sit next to each other from all different kind of companies and fields, and go into what we're doing, which is supporting companies on running their offices on behalf of them and looking at the spectrum of total flexibility. And so we're going to go into models like, again, a company saying, we're going to completely redesign our office to enable agile work, meaning sometimes people work from home. Then when they come to the office, there needs to be great collaboration space. There needs to be great social space. There needs to be all these different elements. How do we design that? Okay, we can do that with you. Any of us here can do that with you because we've designed these kind of spaces time and time again for ourselves. We can now do it for companies. Secondly, we can then help you run those spaces. So we're in multiple conversations where we say, you already have, especially with larger companies, you already have an office, you already have a long lease, but we can come in and do the hospitality part. We can do the maintenance part. Like Tanya said, no company wants to put it on an employee to be responsible for the air conditioning, right? They want to open, as we do it, the Dreamplex app, take a picture of something that's wrong, it goes to a central maintenance team and it gets fixed, right? So we can run the companies for them. Then through that same platform, the same technology platform, people can book a meeting room in District 2 when they need it, when they have a big client meeting there. Or they can book a private office as a war room for 16 people for 2 weeks in our Diem Phu location, right? So it's really more about, it's going to be a big spectrum of flexibility. So I think all of these movements towards more distributed work, more hybrid work, more work from home, in the end is only going to benefit us because we have been doing this for multiple years. And that's really now our time to shine, again, leaving behind the last couple of months, which were very challenging.
And it's interesting, and I appreciate all those views because the big six, big four accounting consulting firms have always had for the last 20 years a hot desk policy. The auditors, they don't want them in the office. There's always been, this is just maybe a marketing spin, or maybe just trying to detach someone from this is my office to I don't need a home office. I can work anywhere in the world. And this change, and it's an interesting of where that's going to go. But Dan, I agree that it's not necessarily a shift. It's just more, maybe just the mindset more than a physical shift. But where there is something which is changing is the Gen Z side of things. And Dan, I'll come back to you on this one, where you've done some research, you've recently released some reports on what you have to do to engage and keep them, because that generation has grown up differently to the ones before about what they need, what they expect, and keeping them attached to the office, keeping them productive and giving them what they need. What was the findings of that report? What can you share with us about how that fits in with the flexible office and what you need to do to deal with the Gen Z?
Yeah, so good question. And again, we have enough work to do. So it's not like we're waking up in the morning and saying, let's do this like really big research study because we're bored. Again, the reason that we're doing this research is because at the end of the day, our end product, our end goal is to deliver a workplace experience, an office environment that aligns with the needs of the people in that office, right? And so we know that by 2025, 25% of the Vietnamese workforce will be Gen Z. So a lot of companies are now really thinking about, okay, with this whole new generation coming in, how do I then do this thing, which has always been the biggest struggle for companies. I'm sure the same for you, Matt, with your team. You know, your company will only work if you have the very best people, right? So how do you attract those people? How do you engage them, get the most out of them? And how do you retain them, right? Because you don't want to lose those people once you have them. And so that has always been the biggest puzzle piece. And that's always, again, been front and center in terms of what we deliver. It's all around that theme of how do you attract, engage, and retain the best people. But then when there's this whole new generation coming in, that then obviously kind of forces the question of, well, how do we do it for them? And that's really why we went into it. And we partnered with Decision Lab to do a big panel study last year. We refreshed it this year and just asked Gen Z very openly, you know, if you could design your dream company, right? Like not even just the office, like what would that look like? And so there's a couple of themes that come out there. And we did a couple of events over the last month, specifically with CEOs and C-suites in emerging industries in Vietnam, like fintech, like e-commerce, like social media. And yeah, it just really resonated. And there was just a lot of, oh yeah, that's exactly why I don't know how to communicate with them. That's why I don't know how to work with them. So some of the things that come out of it is that their expectation of a job is just completely different. They don't go into a job because they want to work a couple of years for a company so that they can then either get promoted within that company or go to the next one. They're not really motivated by salary. They're just saying the first, and one of the Gen Zs literally said this in one of the breakout sessions, the first 2 or 3 jobs after I come out of college, and she wasn't talking about a 10-year plan, the first 2 or 3 jobs are just for me to kind of feel out what I like. Well, if that is the mindset that you go into a job with, then of course you're not going to stay around for more than 3 to 6 months, unless that company basically creates almost a new role for you every 3 to 6 months, which is how we've structured it internally. Every 3 to 6 months, your job changes between 20 and 40%, so that you just always keep evolving in that path. So constant learning and development actually outranked money, salary, as the reason why people want to join the company. And then why do they want to stay really goes into, do they understand me? Do they support me on my growth? Do they support me on my development? Are there opportunities for me? And again, it's very much like a choose your own adventure. One of our presenters, Vanessa Ventura, who is the Chief People Officer at Ogilvy Vietnam, said, this is the work in progress generation. So they're always just looking for the next thing to help them evolve. So if the company themselves doesn't do it, then obviously they're just going to find it somewhere else. And so does the office play a huge role in it? Yeah, I think to a degree, because it is the place where everyone comes together, where you can kind of service that need for learning and development, for growth, for connection, for mentoring, for support. But also in terms of what does that look like, right? So again, it just moves away from this idea of an office where it's just like a row of desks where you come together. It's really much more about feeling comfortable, having choice and flexibility, having the space to do the work in the way that you want. And that is really why, we dove into it. And I'm sure we can share the full report. It's over 50 pages, so I will not recap it here. I'm sure we can share it to everyone to get that insight.
Fantastic. I think Vlad can share that when he shares the recording of the video with everyone as well to access to that. So I'm going to go leading in from.
I actually want to add to this one.
Absolutely, go ahead.
So I do agree with Dan. Like Gen Z, Gen Z, they're different. They're very different. So they want to evolve, as Dan mentioned. They try to learn new things. They're smart. They hardworking. They work fast. So whenever I had to deal with Gen Z in my own team, it was a little bit difficult, to be honest, at the first. But since the experience and everything, I've learned that what they need is they need a lot of communication. They need to know that they're doing the right thing and the right way. They need a lot of engagement. They do go to find a job just to know if they like it or not. That is correct too. And those Gen Z that come to work here, for example, at the Hive, and then they don't know what they want in the future, what we do is we have the Hive Academy for the team as well. So we sit down with them. We every couple months or even weeks, and let them have this time to think what they actually what their interest is and what their actual goals are. what do they want to do in the future. So they need a lot of communication. And when we ask other members who are also in Gen Z, what do they want when they come to the Hive, they always say, I want more friends. I want to make it fun. So it's all about making things fun while they're working. And I think co-working can provide that.
Look, perfect. Thank you very much for that. And I like that, sort of bringing it back to purpose, because this is, I'm going to sort of feed into some of the questions here that we've got from the audience, and purpose is one of them. Coming to the big picture though at the same time, and I'll come back to Lin. One of the questions is asking, a part of these questions, and thank you for asking them and asking, is where do you see the flexible office space as a percentage of offices? And there's a few different questions here. I'm going to lead through a few of them because they follow. What percentage of the total office space? One of the questions here is that, what percentage in 5 and 10 years time? Will it be 5, 10, 20% of all office space will be flexible, be from providers like Dan's talking about that have the experience and provide a product in a sense? Do you see that being a significant proportion of the office space in Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi?
So regarding the penetration of flex space as a total of the like office space area, I think Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi right now the penetration is about 5 to 6% of the total area. But I think like after the pandemic, the penetration will start to grow significantly. Given like several shifts. Including the shift of traditional lease tenants moving to flexible workspace. We also like read like similar report in like North America markets. The growth is increasing, and so in the last couple years. I've seen like some reports saying that like at the more saturated market, the penetration could be around like 10 to 12%. But right now, when revising the forecast, the penetration can go up to 20% of the total like office space area.
On what time frame do you see that 20%?
I think in the next 4 to 5 years, the growth will be that. Yeah, so that is what we believe, and a lot of like co-working operator across the world is expecting.
And I'll continue on with Lin, and then I might go back to Dan and Tanya about this question, because it's a very good question from Ashley there about you're creating spaces, they're curated spaces, and we've talked about the fact that you're almost acting as an agent. You're the be all and end all. Do you see the positioning of the flexible office providers to be this agent? And so instead of larger businesses going and negotiating direct with a building and negotiating with all the different elements, it becomes the norm and becomes more acceptable that that co-working flexible office operators are just an agent. They do it for you, and you don't make that. You sort of like, if you're going to lease a building now, you might go to a CBRE or a JLL or a Cushman Wakefield, where that changes now, where I need an office. I'll go start talking to my agent, who happens to be Serco, Dreamplex, the Hive. Do you think that shift is happening, and that's a realistic way of looking at things into the near future? Lin, I'll start with you on that. Yep.
I think co-working operator is somehow replacing the job of the real estate agents, such as the brands that you just mentioned, because right now, like a flexible workspace is becoming a replacement option, and it can solve the same issues as real estate agent can do for the tenants in terms of sourcing the space to operating and managing the space. Yeah, so in a couple 3 to 5 years, I think tenants will find office spaces through flexible workspace operator. So flexible workspace operator can also provide real estate brokerage service or office expansion consultancy to tenants. So I think when it comes to the point, more and more people will be looking at flexible workspace as a more significant replacement option compared to the traditional ones.
And Dan, I'll go across to you to sort of the same question. You talked about curating spaces, you talked about providing the services. Do you see yourself as the agent and the agent of the future, the same way Lin has talked about?
Well, I was listening to Lin with great interest, because obviously this is a dangerous territory, right? Because we very much like coexist with our friends at Savills, CBRE, Cushman, Colliers. You know, we work with them very closely, because I think the agent is typically the first one that a company would go to when they're trying to find a new office space. And I actually see a lot of the agents, some better than others, but a lot of the agents actually moving more towards this kind of like taking a broader view. I don't think that the agent necessarily wants to sell just traditional office space. I think at the end of the day, a company goes to an agent to find the best solution. I think if they would go directly to us or to Hive or to Circle, of course, we can give them the best solution, but within what we do, right? So I think the agent at the end of the day is more of an impartial source that can then, based on the client's needs, say, hey, I think it makes sense to talk to Hive or to Circle or to Dreamplex. And then I think the conversation starts. I think to Ashley's question, I know Ashley is also with the Hive. So, you know, to her question, I'm sure she has some ideas about this too. I do think that we will take a larger role in the sense that we don't come into the process when the decision has already been made that we want to go into this kind of space in this kind of location, but be much more of a consultative partner to companies. Again, companies are not trying to solve the problem of office space. They're trying to solve the problem of work, right? As Alexander Westenthal, who is the, I think, head of HR or the VP of HR at Spotify, you know, he said early this year that work is something you do, not something where you go, right? The problem that a company is trying to solve is not like, do I need an office or not? Like, or what kind of office should it be? It's really a much broader question about how do I get a really great, engaged, you know, collaborative, innovative workforce. And the office is a part of that. So I do think that we will have a much broader conversation beyond just the office. And then within that, of course, say, okay, if that's your total strategy, so let's say you're going to go for a 0.5 ratio of desk to employee because you expect people to only work from the office 2 to 3 days per week, then let's talk about how that office supports that. Then also let's talk about what other spaces you need, either within that office, or again, if we talk about an unbundled office in different spaces across, for example, the city, combined with remote work, maybe combined with shared office spaces. So I think we're going to come in a little bit more from the consulting side, but very much working with the agent, because I think the tenant or the occupier still wants to talk to someone who they truly trust to be impartial. And, you know, when I worked in advertising, this was always the debate. Do I go to a media agency who understands all the potential ways I can spend my marketing media money? Or do I go straight to Facebook and make a huge deal with Facebook where I'm going to do this type of Facebook advertising, this type of Facebook advertising? Or do I go to Google and give them all my budget and say, spend it in the most effective way within the Google network? So I do think there's definitely still a role for agencies, but I see more and more the agencies getting very close to us and us very close to the agencies to together really have a great point of view towards a potential customer about what we can do for them in, again, the broader picture of workplace.
Yeah, I also believe the coexistence between the operator and the agents. So a couple of months ago, there's an announcement of one of the biggest co-working operator with one of the biggest brokerage firm, where they are letting each other to utilize their space in providing flexible workspace to their tenants. And I think that is that can be a good way to help both adapt in the new normal, where we have to look at the fact that more and more traditional tenants are moving towards more flexible workspace. So I think it is much better to collaborate, but not to to challenge others on their business instincts.
Right. So Cushman and Wakefield made a huge investment into WeWork, right, as part of a broader partnership. CBRE actually bought 30% of Industrious, which is pretty much like the second player after WeWork and Serendipity Labs. So it just shows that, you know, we're all trying to be in the same world, which is we need to think broader about workplace, and we all want to be a part of that conversation. And actually, CBRE, interestingly enough, you know, they tried to do it themselves. They created a co-working brand, a flex brand called Hana. And they started building location after location, and they basically kind of threw in the towel. I think they've admitted as such, because they realized they can never be competitive in the US, for example, with a chain like WeWork or a chain like Industrious, because they have that distribution and they have the network. And the network and the distribution is for large companies the most important thing, because again, this is an outsourcing business. And then Microsoft doesn't want to work with this company in New York, this company in Atlanta, this company, right? They want to work with one player that can do all the work for them across all the different locations. So CBRE folded the Hana brand into Industrious. They're now one under the same brand. They're rebranding all of those locations right now, including the future locations. But it really goes to show that the whole, I think, again, like just stepping away from that notion of traditional co-working, the entire market, including the most, I would say some of the brokers are the most traditional ones. They're all moving towards flex. It's all moving this way. Everyone wants to be a part of it, of this unbundled distributed office. And so those things are just like great examples, but you even look in our backyard, obviously the Hive is building a big network across countries, right? So you can go, one company can partner with Hive in different countries. Justco, valued at $1 billion right now, originally based out of Singapore, also with a very traditional backer, right? They got a property management firm, Frasers, to make a big investment in them. So it's not so much about, is it going to be this or this? I think everyone is moving to that same point, which is a more flexible, more service, more engaging office environment, and a lot of collaboration between parties, in this case, between the broker and the operator, but also, again, the customer, right? The company, they have a huge role in what they want and need for their team.
And that leads to another question I have, and I don't mind Tanya answering this one there, is one of the questions from the audience is there that we've got, for example, the hotels, hospitality spaces that aren't being used anymore. We've got in some countries, there is a lot of shopping centers that are no longer being turned into flexible workspaces. Will we see that in Vietnam? Will we see this mixed space, this change in how we're using space? So the example with the question was some of those hotels that have great spaces that were not that, do they, in great locations, do we turn them into flexible working areas within sort of a hospitality space? Is that evolution going to happen in Vietnam, or do you think it's going to be a little bit more slower, a little bit more boutique or traditional in the paths you're currently going along? Or will it change because of the change in real estate?
Well, it's already changing. So we had a lot of, as you know, the pandemic in 2020, the tourism bankrupt, I'd say. So there's a lot of hotels will transfer and start to host patients with F0. And actually people will not book the hotel right now, or they save the money, or they cannot go out of their home. And travel to other cities. So a lot of landlords, a lot of hotel owners and those corporations, they start to switch to renting the office. So I've seen a lot of them trying to do similar to what we do, a co-working space. And they sometimes even reach out to us and ask for a partnership. There's a lot of opportunities here, but not everyone can bring the value that we do. So bring the community, because we have so many years of experience of how to build a good co-working space to have everything inside. So we have the meeting rooms, we have the pantry or a coffee station, or the part of the co-working where just to invite the community and then just for them to network and talk to each other. So a lot of, to answer the question, yes, a lot of hotels are switching to co-working, but they don't have much experience on doing so, which is why now we have a lot of opportunities to work with landlords. They reach out to us, but it's not always a lot of opportunity is the right one. So the Hive especially is looking for the right opportunity. We are doing a lot of negotiations, a lot of conversations, not even only here in Vietnam, but also in other Asia Pacific countries like Singapore, Thailand, and also Hong Kong, of course, where our headquarters is. So yeah, co-working will definitely grow for the next 5 years, not only in other countries, but also here in Vietnam.
And I'll also ask Dan and Lin about this as well, because you obviously want a space that meets your skill set. You want a space that meets the vibe of your business, and this is where the three presenters here each have a subtly different business model and different experience and different expectations. Will you see the adapting and becoming more generic across this industry as opportunities arise and the need for flex space? Do you think, Lin and Dan, sort of using those hotels or hospitality space, using the other assets, the shopping centres that are no longer functioning as shopping centres, do you see that happening in Vietnam as well, like Tanya talked about?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to split the two a little bit, right? Because hotels typically, they may have a business center, they may have a little bit of like, workspace for hotel guests. What it typically comes down to there would be skill, right? So for us to build really great offices on behalf of other companies that are custom designed to their needs, I think to Ashley's question, that's really hard to do inside a hotel. Hotel wasn't structured for that, right? But we're seeing it in residential buildings. We're seeing it definitely in shopping malls. Again, Industrious as an example, they've built some of their best performing locations inside shopping malls because, again, people, the office needs to become a place that people love to come to. And who doesn't love to go to a mall, right? Especially in a good mall where you have a food court, there's a lot of F&B opportunities. You can go shopping after work. Everything is on that perimeter. You have great parking. Everything is structured in a shopping mall around making it easy to access, having a lot of good space, having great F&B. So all the parameters are there. The only thing that Industrious always says is that in a shopping mall, sometimes it's very much about kind of like forgetting about the outside world because you want to put people into this mindset of that I lost time and space. I want to buy as much as possible, kind of like a casino. They say we will only take a space if there's a lot of natural light because like for the sense of well-being, for the sense of, okay, I spent, not just an hour here, but I spend like tens of hours a week. It needs to be a space where you feel well, and natural light we know is very important for that. But with that asterisk aside, yeah, like shopping malls could be, retail space could be really, really good. And I've seen Kogo has a space in Hanoi where they've done that inside a mall. Looks really, really nice. Again, like really, really accessible, really great. Also like vertically integrated with the other elements in that building. So totally, but it really depends. Again, like the space has to be right. So like Tanya said, our business, again, on the one side, of course, we're serving companies, but in a way we serve two masters, right? On the other side, we serve landlords. We are an operating partner for the landlord. So whatever property they have, we run it on behalf of them, and then we share the revenue. And so, the landlord also needs to have, a great space available. It needs to fit within what they're doing in totality. And that's really where we can deliver our value. So yeah, there's definitely way more properties and deals that we look at versus the ones that we take because it all has to align. And again, it's almost like impossible to think about how difficult it is to find a space that works for our type of business because the shared space needs to be in a certain way. It needs to be structured in a certain way. The columns needs to be distributed in a certain way to create enough space to subdivide into smaller offices or to give enterprises their own floor. But yeah, when we find it, like we've done it now with the 3 upcoming locations in District 1, 2, and 4, it's great. Yeah.
And Lin, anything else you want to add to that or any other thoughts you have?
I've seen like several very successful co-working space that put like in different type of assets, not just only in office buildings. And I think the commercial real estate scene will start to be like much more different from what it has been in the past. For example, like co-working space could be put in the hotels or in a shopping malls, wherever it is convenient for people to go to work and enjoy the facilities around that. For Circle, we have started to explore several options to put our centers, not just only in office buildings anymore, but we had one location in Dongyu that's put in one of the oldest hotel in the area, in the Saigon Hotel. And we're also developing several other like co-working space that put in the traditional shop house, where I took the whole like big shop house space and try like to divide the working space and F&B where it can provide the ultimate experience for the members. We also like receive a lot of like inquiries from landlords of supermarket or commercial like department store to ask us to put the co-working space in their space. That is also one of the utilization method that can drive traffic to their space. So I think the trend and the alternative of the locations will start to diverge in a couple of years, where I think the utilization of real estate is one of the increasing concern.
Thank you. So there's a question here. I'm just going to put it out there to think about for when we do a summary in a few minutes' time. But Chris wants to know how many locations you're planning on growing in coming years. So if you want to build that into, if you can, into your closing answers, so just put it out there for panelists to have a think about.
I'm sure Chris would love to know that.
So I'm just going to put that there just to put it out there. So whether you answer it or not, I'll leave it to your summaries. Another question there is, to come back to the now, is about COVID and COVID safe. What have you been doing, Tanya, you can start, to make sure that your building's safe, that you were looking after tenants? Because, you know, we've got a spread, we've got air, that's an issue. We've still got restricted access, and we've got to lodge plans with the authorities to come back to work. And there's a whole range of different requirements. And we're still in this unknown period of as we're transitioning back to the office. What have you been doing? What are some of the things that you've been looking at to make sure that it is a safe workplace for your tenants and your customers and to come back to?
Yes, thank you. Great question, to be honest. It's a very strange time right now. So to come back to the office this Monday, before even a week before that, we reached out to all our members to ask them, well, how are you? And then, how are you still in Vietnam? And then also ask them, what's the vaccination rate in your team? So we made this safety measures that currently we only allow green passes or yellow passes, so 1 vaccine and 14 days. It just depends on the regulations, and we will follow the regulations of the government. So that's the first, always follow the regulations to not be fined here in Vietnam, and also to ensure the safety of our members and the staff. The second will be following a 5K, so mask I actually have here in the office. Always wear it, disinfect everything. So whenever we come to the office, we'll wipe with spray, antibacterial, wipe it. We disinfect it regularly, with the company. And also, of course, we will ask our members to fill out the declaration form, sometimes even send us the screenshot of the green passes. And for the new members or leads or potential customers, we also ask them to, if they had a double vaccination or what's their rate. If they haven't yet, we will ask them, okay, would you be able to come at a later time? So we ensure that everyone is safe, even our staff or members that are coming to the office. So that's the one thing. I think safety is the most important right now. Everyone is a little bit scared, and because our population, fully vaccinated population, is less than 10% right now. So I think going on forward, we will keep doing that until the government says no. And
we're at 65% in Ho Chi Minh City and close to that in Hanoi, but yes, outside those areas. So it's an evolving and what happens is going to be interesting to sort of how we do. I know, Dan, you have to, one of your locations, I believe, had to operate throughout the whole thing because of some of your clients were in specific industries. Have you kept the same approach the way through? Have you changed your approach now under the reopenings and guidelines? How have you dealt with the COVID requirements?
Yeah, so similar to what Tanya was mentioning, although we didn't close down our locations because again, it's our, we work for the companies, so the companies need access to their office and they had access to their office throughout. Now, obviously, more people take advantage of that, so there's more people coming in, and that also means that the on-site team is very, very strict on making sure that everyone adheres to the policies. You don't even get into the building without the right passport on hand. There's quick COVID tests available. Like, again, going back to what we're really doing, which is to support companies on this whole thing called workplace, right? So we actually work very closely with HR departments to do, for example, their internal communication. What are you going to say to your employees? What makes sense in terms of welcoming people back? And that is the kind of stuff that otherwise someone in, some kind of role within the office would have to figure out by themselves. And that's really where we come in. And then obviously we also handle that transition. So all of our on-site teams are there to make sure that that all happens very seamlessly. And again, we need to make sure safety is number one, right? As Tanya said, when people come back to the office, that is one of the things that we need to make sure we do really well, because companies definitely need to feel very safe in bringing their employees back. Again, that said, I don't think many companies are going to come back en masse right now. I think, Matthew, you're also taking a bit of time, right, before you really invite everyone back.
Yeah, we've in our office, I've got about 120, 115 staff in my Ho Chi Minh City office. We've brought back 10 people, and we'll just see how that goes for the time being. We need to be open, but work from home continues for the near future.
That's right. So I think we see that with a lot of customers. And again, all of our account managers are in touch with customers on an ongoing basis, speaking to them about what are their plans for re-entry, supporting them on that transition plan. And yeah, for most of them, it will be very gradually building up. And there are some customers who are very kind of in some ways office-centric or more reliant on the physical space. You could, for example, think about development companies where the kind of people that they hire typically don't have an actual space in Saigon. So they maybe have been working from hometown or typically rent a small room in Saigon and they're not able to work from home. So they are a little bit more forceful in bringing people back. So for those kind of companies, we make sure there's enough spacing. I think Lin even is installing the plastic screens between desks. We make sure that people don't sit near each other. We're blocking out seats, all these things, again, that typically within a larger company like your company, probably an office manager or someone else would do. We just do it on behalf of companies so that companies, don't have that hassle of thinking through how to keep everyone safe when they come back to the office.
Perfect. And just Lin, you can sort of add on to what you've done again, because you've had a co-working entrepreneurial sort of side as you've grown into your traditional, more traditional flex offices, but you've still got a lot of that co-working space. And yeah, what have you done for your space? Like Dan said, you've got dividers, or what else have you been doing?
Yeah. So for us, our top priority is safety and health for all the customers. So we have added safe office standards to be one of our mandatory operations guidelines in the team. So for example, just recently, we just launched a safe office standards, and it is recently our planning and marketing campaign to let our members understand how we are coping with the with the COVID spread out. For example, we are implemented mask everywhere policy, and our teams. So in the next week, by mid of October, our team will be 100% 2-dose vaccination. So we are also implementing a very regular COVID test across all of our staff, especially the community team, so who are the front line interacting with the members. And we also modify a lot of space planning and installing partitions to, and reducing the density in public area to make sure that the risk of spreading to be minimized in our space.
Perfect. And a lot of these things are not just, some of them are government mandated guidance that we have to follow, and some of it just good business practice makes everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And right now we are doing much more compared to what the government is requiring.
Perfect. So I'm going to, we're running out of time, so I'm going to put one question back to each of you, and I'll come back, I'll go to Tanya first. And this is about, just to finish off, vision. Where do you see your business into the future? What would you like to see? How do you see that sort of the Hive's business model in Vietnam evolving, and what you want to achieve with that? It's more of a visionary, forward-looking closing statement, if you could, Tanya.
Hi, so the Hive in 5 years or in the next coming year, we will definitely expand. It's just the right, it's waiting for the right opportunity, and it expanded steadily, but right way. So as Dan mentioned, we always look for a co-working that has a lot of natural lighting. So all our 3 locations have a lot of light. And also we have outdoors. So here at the Hive Villa, we have a swimming pool, we have a patio. So it's a very beautiful outdoors area where members can just go outside and have a chit chat or enjoy a coffee and maybe like take a cigarette as well. And then also at the Hive Thao Dien, we have a beautiful rooftop with similar. You can get a lunch there, although it might be a little bit hot, but at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. you can go upstairs the rooftop and enjoy the beer. So we try to incorporate that in our future locations. So definitely different type of co-working offers different value, right? So the Hive would like to always build on the community, and always our team is always engaging with the members. So there's a question about how the co-working connects networks and connects businesses and entrepreneurs. The answer to that is that our team knows pretty much everyone. We call everyone by names. And if you come to us, you're looking for a marketing person, we know who to connect to you. So we will reach out for a coffee, for example, and then, okay, he's getting coffee, let's go together. And we will introduce this person to you. Or we do a lot of networking events where it's sometimes about entrepreneur startups, sometimes about just business networking. And that way we connect businesses to businesses. So different value each co-working gives different one.
Okay, just in the interest of time, because we're running out, to see people from dropping off there. Dan, your sort of, I'll go across to you, your vision for the future, your sort of 60-second future look forward for Greenplex. What would you add?
Because I always keep it short, right? Yeah, so I'll use the... Okay, so here it is in very brief. Again, like all of the business metrics and those kind of things aside, you know, what do we get up for in the morning is our shared passion within the team to deliver a better day at work for employees. We partner with companies to do that for them. And for that, we want to scale, right? We believe that everyone deserves a better day at work. So definitely we want to scale. We have a very clear target of 40,000 square meters under management in the next couple of years. And we are well underway. We're opening 3 big new locations within the next 6 months. That's going to really get us to that goal. And really, again, what we're going to be doing and what we're going to be seeing is just like moving up in the conversation. So not coming in at the point where the company has already decided, I need an office of this size for this many people, but actually be more of that partner, both in the consulting stage and then while we're running it and constantly optimizing for that. So that is our plan and ambition.
Perfect. That was very brief for you, Dan. That was surprising, refreshing. And Lin, you're lucky last there, and I'll let you sort of talk about where do you see yourself and Serco and the sort of your vision for where you want to get to?
So in the next couple of years, we see ourselves as a ever-growing organizations that can provide better office solutions to more and more and bigger customers. And of course, we are also expanding at the moment. We're collaborating with a lot of real estate landlords to help turning their assets into office space.
Very short. Well done. Thank you very much. Well, on that, run out of time, so I'm going to thank Lin, Tanya, and Dan for your insights, hearing about Dreamplex, Hive, Serco, and your thoughts about the industry, what you've gone through, where we're going. Been fantastic. We could talk for a lot longer, but we have to sort of respect time and say thank you very much. I'll hand back to Vlad, who is going to close this, and thank you everyone and have a great day. So Vlad, back over to you.
Thank you, Matthew, and thank you, Tanya, Lin, and Dan for the really fantastic information and insights on this interesting panel discussion. I would like to, obviously, the information that was shared was quite a lot, but I will try to summarize somehow in 3 words, in my opinion, the key elements that may stand out and would be relevant to be remembered here based on your conversation. And I think these are common for all of you and for the co-working industry. I think the first one would be flexibility. I think flexibility is a key word that is relevant for all client segments that you face, looking at freelance, entrepreneurs, consultants, SMEs, MNCs, they all look for flexibility. And I think this is what the co-working and flexible workspace industry bridges with that traditional workspace model as well. The second one, I think, collaboration and bringing together everyone under that marketing and cultural shift towards a common place where everyone can share those values and that information that is important for them. And I think the third one, also relevant for all of you here, is expansion. The co-working space market is expanding, and obviously Dreamplex, Serco, and Tanya are looking for, and the Hive are looking for expansion. That's fantastic. Also from our point of view, we work with investors all the time. They're looking for expansion as well into Vietnam, and that meets essentially everyone's goals and needs. So I think it's really interesting to be part of this growing industry, and we're really happy to be aligned with this industry within our stakeholder engagement and everything that we do at a client here as well. So thank you again, everyone, for your insights. Thank you, Matthew, for moderating this session. Thank you to the attendees as well for your questions and attention. We'll leave you here. We're going to do a follow-up email to all of you with a few details, market studies from a client, from Dreamplex, and other files from Tanya and Lin. And let's catch up soon for maybe a new event. Maybe this time we're going to do it face-to-face live. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.